BlackRock is one of the most reviled corporations in business. It's the biggest bank in history, and it controls assets in more than 90% of the world's countries. Controversy has followed the company as it rose to become the most powerful corporation on Earth. But your assumptions about BlackRock will soon be proven wrong. They have cornered themselves into their own corrupt games, and now the ground is starting to give out from under them. Hello and welcome to Financial Fortune, your go-to channel for all things related to finance, investments, and the economy. In today's video, we'll be discussing the recent events surrounding BlackRock's $13 trillion collapse and the bank runs that have already started. In 2023, almost all of us, 90%, were completely unfamiliar with BlackRock 3 years ago. When they speak, we all quake in fear because we know who they are. However, in a year from now, BlackRock will be a mere shell of its former self as the greatest financial institution in the world begins its inevitable decline. You aren't aware of it yet, though. And if this is the first you've heard of their passing, you have to wonder what brought it about. The point is that the question is why the media is making such an effort to keep this from you. You've probably heard 100 times by now that BlackRock is enormous, that they dwarf all other corporations, and that they aim to rule the globe. But you don't know how they infiltrated the US government to get to this point. BlackRock has been sending their executives to work in high-profile positions for the United States government, and the company has also been hiring former government employees and paying them handsomely for their connections. Eric von Nostrand, a former managing director at BlackRock, is now a senior advisor to Vice President Joe Biden. Former BlackRock CIO Mike Pyle now serves as Kamala Harris's top economic advisor. Immediately following the last election, Biden also hired 2 other BlackRock executives, Brian Dees and Adewale Ediamo, to serve as Deputy Treasury Secretary and Chief of the National Economic Council, respectively. There are hundreds more examples, but they all show that BlackRock has tremendous sway over the United States government and manipulates the market to their advantage. And since there is no rivalry, this can hardly be called capitalism. Corruption in government and corporate influence are what are holding America back. You probably already know that BlackRock is not a well-liked firm. They have their grubby paws in every pie they can find, and it's beginning to draw some unwelcome attention. BlackRock's founder and current CEO, Larry Fink, has stated that he has no desire for fame. He certainly didn't want his image to appear in the previews of thousands of similar videos on YouTube. He actively avoided revealing himself to us. But as BlackRock expanded, he had no choice but to gradually step into the spotlight. Now, he's famous for all the wrong reasons and is practically a household name. It will be very difficult for you to find a positive BlackRock video on YouTube. And not without good cause. Their corrupt deeds are well known by now. They are covered not only by independent journalists like myself, but also by the mainstream media, which would gladly be bought and sold. Not to ever speak ill of BlackRock. To remain silent would be to dispel all illusions and admit they are merely puppets. So even they are forced to report on this cabal and how unpopular they are becoming. Why are companies like the New York Times so set on keeping up appearances of legitimacy when they clearly aren't? Why aren't we hearing about these game-changing government appointments on our TVs? BlackRock is the largest shareholder in each of these companies, so perhaps that's a factor. Try to guess who owns 7% of Fox News. Who do you think owns 5% of News Corp? Try to guess who owns 8% of Comcast. In a word, BlackRock. Even though these aren't controlling stakes, they still put a BlackRocker on the board of directors of every publicly traded company, including the media conglomerates. BlackRock owns 6% of Google, so the investment firm has substantial sway over YouTube and makes extensive use of the platform. The powers that be don't want you to see what's going on, so there's a very good chance that this video will be demonetized, shadowed, banned, buried, or even deleted. And the only way to know the truth is to avoid their ecosystems and instead access information through channels that are not subject to censorship. Since we now have clear vision, we are familiar with BlackRock. We are aware of their actions, and the public at large is extremely dissatisfied. This is one area where BlackRock has no leverage, so they are being forced to adapt. They get news coverage that they like, they can get laws and regulations passed that benefit their bottom line, but they can't defeat democracy. They are helpless as a group to defend themselves against a hostile populace. And this is where things get really bad for BlackRock, as their golden goose is being dismantled as we speak. Investments that adhere to ESG principles are meant to benefit society rather than harm it. Each investment is assigned a score based on environmental impact, social responsibility, and corporate accountability. It's a way to prevent patronage of harmful and corrupt organizations. But the real reason it exists is to make money, just like everything else in the financial markets. The question is, who benefits? Well, since BlackRock designed this system, they have the authority to decide which businesses are worthy of investment and which should be avoided. Outrage grew as news articles from smaller, independent outlets gradually blew the lid off of the cabal. Especially when the true motivation was revealed to be monetary rather than altruistic, preventing climate change and saving the planet. This transformation was hastened by two events that made the truth known to millions. The first involves Elon Musk, who has an audience in the hundreds of millions. No one can stop him from spreading his message if he decides to do so. He aimed at ESG's ratings and fired. After Oil-Geon, Exxon, and Mobil were named among the top 10 companies in the world for ESG, while Elon's electric car manufacturer Tesla was removed from the list entirely in the middle of 2022, Elon made a public statement claiming the world had lost its integrity. The public has finally heard Elon Musk's arguments and finds them convincing. I fail to see how the oil industry could benefit the world more than the electric vehicle industry. At first, media outlets were merely reporting on what Elon said. However, as public support for him and his statement grew, the media eventually backed his statement as well. Elon is correct in his assessment of ESG being a scam, and soon we began receiving articles from barons and previously unheard voices arguing as much. The media was hesitant to report the truth, but they did so in the end. The decline of ESG speeded up significantly when FTX and SBF were introduced. Before his crypto exchange Ponzi scheme was exposed, he was held in high esteem as the head of one of the world's premier ESG companies. Despite not giving a damn about doing anything wrong, he consistently topped ESG rankings, which he used to lure billions of dollars into his company. It was also discovered that he had given $105,000 to the Republican Party and $36 million to the Democrats, which may explain why his company was treated so gently up until the fraud was exposed and why he is still allowed to fly first class. There has been a complete corruption of ESG. Nothing more than PR, really. Yet, at this point, we can all admit that this is true. After years of being exposed as a hoax, ESG is quickly becoming irrelevant. It's highly likely that every billionaire fund manager will completely disregard it. That's not good for BlackRock's stock. In the business world, they essentially ruled in this area. It's not surprising given that they made it themselves. It's all coming apart at the seams now, though, and the fraudulence of ESG has been common knowledge for a long time. So why have we just now begun discussing this? Moreover, why are major news outlets still avoiding giving this story the coverage it warrants? Unfortunately, you are aware of the solution already. BlackRock wants to keep running their racket because they own the media, and this cabro is what made them the largest institution in history. That's all for today's video on financial fortune. We hope you found this information useful and informative. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell to stay up to date on the latest news and trends in the world of finance. Thanks for watching.